Hello? Yeah, sure, I can make it out of wood. I'm going to make a wood version of this phone handset. The first thing we're going to have to do is try and pry it apart. I'm using this razor blade, and it's working very well. It's a risky operation, but someone has to do it. With the two pieces separated, you can see that there's not very much going on inside these things. Next up, we need to remove all the guts. All this stuff was just glued in place. I'm going to be making separate circles for the part that the microphone and the speaker go into. These were then cut out at the bandsaw and then sanded down at the disc sander. I drew the curve of the handset onto a block of oak. I tried to keep a consistent thickness for the handset. This was then also cut out at the bandsaw. I used the orbital spindle sander to smooth down the handset. I drew the front profile of the phone onto the wood. This will be cut out at the bandsaw and then sanded down to shape. Everything is shaped, and I'm doing a little stack here to see how everything looks. This speaker is going to have to fit inside here, so I'm marking how big a hole I will need. I used some Forstner bits to hollow out the inside for the speaker and the microphone. Here I'm using a really dull chisel to work on the hole for the phone jack. And I ended up cracking it, so that sucked. Here I'm using my router and a 1/8 inch bit to make a channel for the wires to fit in. I drilled a bunch of tiny holes for the speaker and the microphone. Here are all the components ready to assemble, and before I glue it, I'm going to put it together dry to see how it all fits together. All the electrical components are hot glued in place, and I'm using wood glue to glue the wood pieces together. I cut a very thin piece of wood to use as a veneer to cover up the wires. This thin piece of wood was made thinner by sanding and then shaped by sanding. This veneer was then made pliable by soaking in hot water. The rest of the wires were hot glued in place. Once the hot glue was dried, the veneer was glued on using wood glue and clamps. It took a lot of sanding and routing to get the shape that I wanted. The speaker and the microphone needed a concave surface, so I used a round nose router bit to make this. I finished everything off with some polyacrylic. Here is the finished wooden phone handset, and yes, it does work. Thanks for watching.